Hello everyone, it's Valerie Abrahamian with Advocates for Angels, and tonight I'm really happy because today I got some really good news in the mail. I wrote a compliance complaint and the state found 5 out of 6 of the allegations that I made in the compliance complaint in violation. And so basically I won on 5 out of 6 of the allegations that I made. And then coupled with that, today I had an IEP meeting, a 4-hour IEP meeting, and that meeting was a result of another compliance complaint that I wrote. And that complaint, I was found successful in having the district found in violation of 4 out of 5 of the allegations that I made. So as you can probably guess, tonight's topic is going to be compliance complaints. So it's the end of the school year and a lot of parents are maybe a little bit unhappy or not too pleased with the way their child's IEP went or special education program was implemented this school year. So you might want to think about maybe writing a compliance complaint. Now, a compliance complaint is a really strong advocacy step. You're not going to want to just, flippantly decide to write a compliance complaint. There are many steps that you should take first before you make this decision. But I'm going to go over those steps, and I just want to let you know that it is an option that parents can always take to write a compliance complaint. But I want to start with letting you know that the IEP is a legally binding contract. So the school district is required by law to implement that legally binding contract. So if they're not implementing everything that's in your IEP, then they're violating the legally binding contract, your IEP. So many parents don't know that this is true, but it's actually, they're breaking the law. They're breaking IDEA and state and federal codes if they're not implementing your IEP. So everything in your IEP needs to be implemented just as it's written. And let me give you an example. One of the complaints that I wrote, the RSP teacher, she just didn't think that she had to implement the IEP, her RSP services, as it was written in the IEP. And that just wasn't true. So we took many steps before we decided to write a compliance complaint. We met with the IEP team 3 or 4 times before I wrote the compliance complaint. The parent went and had 3 meetings with the principal at the school site. I called the SELPA director and I discussed it with her. And I spoke with the director who was attending all of our IEP meetings in which we were discussing these concerns as well. And all of those attempts were not successful in having the RSP teacher begin to implement the RSP services appropriately and according to the IEP. And this was a whole school year in which this took place, and so we decided to write a compliance complaint. And so happily, we won, and now it's going to be made right. The state, when violations are cited in the compliance complaint by the state writes specific resolutions that the district must comply with in resolving those violations. So at the end of the complaint, they're going to be listed. But moving back to the beginning of what I was talking about the IEP being a legally binding contract, the first step you're going to take is, as I said, you're going to bring your concerns to your IEP team, and you're going to have it documented in your IEP. Parent is concerned with, you're going to have all your issues written down of what you're concerned with and what areas that you feel and you believe that your IEP is not being implemented. You're going to discuss it with your IEP team. You're going to have it on your parent agenda, and you're going to ask for that parent agenda to be page numbered and adopted and included in your IEP document. So then it's documented, because you want to start developing a paper trail to support your compliance complaint so that you have a strong compliance complaint should you decide to write one. The next step you should take in developing a strong compliance complaint is, as I said, make if after you have your IEP meeting, those violations continue, then you're going to take it up a notch. You're going to call the district office and you're going to talk to the director or your SILPA director, and you're going to bring your concerns to them and you're going to let them know. And you could also always, of course, take it to your principal, because the principal is the boss over that school site. And you want to let your principal know if he or she is not attending your IEP meetings, you're going to want to bring your concerns to them as well. Because many times the principals can fix it for you. They can go in and go, hey guys, what are you doing? You got to implement the IEP. You're in violation here or there. But most of the time, what happens when you bring your concerns is they're going to say, well, we investigated and we looked into it and we believe that we are implementing the IEP according to the IEP document, and we believe that we're not doing anything wrong. Many times that'll happen. Sometimes it'll get fixed. But you should always take those steps first. Okay? So then you're going to want to continue to gather your evidence, your paper trail. Because when you write a compliance complaint, the more documented evidence that you have, hi everybody, hi Stephanie, hi Lisa, hi Liz, the more evidence that you have to include in your compliance complaint, the better chance you're going to have to be your district found in violation of implementing the IEP. So what kind of evidence does that look like? That could be, like I said, you had those things documented in your IEP, so your IEPs could be included in there. You could be writing emails. In fact, I highly recommend you write emails to your director, to your principal, to your program specialist, your coordinator, or whoever district representative you're working with. And emails are great evidence for compliance complaints as well. You can gather your student work samples, what they're doing in class. It all depends on what the violation is, but you want to gather the evidence to substantiate whatever that violation is. So if it has to do with maybe accommodations, you're gonna start saving every one of your kids' work samples to say, look, they didn't implement the accommodation there. They didn't implement it there. If it's in work samples that there's the evidence, you gather all the work samples you can gather to add. You might add data collection if you have data collection logs, if that's an area of the violation. You can add behavior logs. You can ask for service logs if, say, you don't believe the speech and language pathologist is implementing all the speech services. Ask for the speech and language service logs. And when you ask for service logs, you put it in writing. Remember, if it wasn't written, it never happened. So you put it in an email and you say, I'm requesting my speech and language service logs. I look forward to receiving them within 5 days, because that's a records request, is to ask for your service logs. And parents, you have the right to see your service logs. Now they might say, oh, I can't give you the original service logs because they have other children's names on it and that's a breach of confidentiality. You can ask for those other students' names to be redacted, blacked out, so that you can still see the original ones. Many times they won't give you the original ones, and they're going to transcribe it onto another log with just your child's names on it. But nevertheless, you have a right to the service logs. So anyway, you gather as much paper trail evidence, documented evidence, as you can to substantiate your compliance complaint. Then the next step, what you're going to do, after you've taken all those steps and it still is a problem, you're going to write your compliance complaint. Now, every state has their own process for a compliance complaint. So you're going to look up what your state's process is, but it's going to be filed with the State Board of Education in your state. And you're going to look up, they usually have form letters, a certain format in which how you write your complaint, where you send it to, how long that's going to take to get a response. In California, it's about 60 days to get a response, but you're going to write your complaint. Now, complaints are pretty hard to write because you have to cite the law that they're violating. So you got to know how to look up the law, know how to write the complaint in a proper way, in a factual way, supported with evidence. And if you feel that you're not going to be able to do that, I highly recommend that you hire someone to write a really strong compliance complaint, because the stronger your complaint is written, the more chances you have to be successful in having your school site and district found in violation. I've had parents try to write it on their own, and a lot of times it comes back where there's no violations because they just didn't write it properly. So like I said, it's worth the investment to have someone write it, hire someone to write it for you, an advocate or an attorney. Okay, so after you write your complaint and you include all your supporting documents and your evidence, then each one of those things is going to be an exhibit. Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, each one of your pieces of evidence is going to be exhibits. And then after you submit that to the state, a state investigator is going to give you a call and say, hello, Mom, I want to review with you all of your allegations, and I just want to get some details from you. They'll probably have some questions. They might not understand something and say, you said this was in the IEP dated this, but I couldn't find it. And so you're going to go over all those things and clarify your allegations with the state investigator. Then what's going to happen is the state investigator is going to call the district, and the district is going to have their opportunity to say, no, that's not true. We did not violate anything. And they're going to give their evidence to substantiate their side to say, nope, we don't believe we violated, and here's our evidence. And then the investigator is going to look at both evidences, and they're going to make a determination on whether there was a violation or not. They're going to write up their report, and then they're going to return it to you. Like I said, in California, it's around 60 days. So after you receive that response in the mail, then it's going to tell you each allegation was either the district was in compliance or the district was out of compliance. And if the district was out of compliance, then the state is going to say, district, you must do this, and this by such and such a date. These things need to happen. And that's going to be for each allegation. They're going to resolve those allegations with having the district do something. So for that one that I was telling you about today with the RSP, how that they resolved it was that mom is going to receive a whole year's worth of RSP services by a credentialed teacher outside of school because that RSP teacher was in violation of providing RSP services. So it was quite a big win for us within that particular instance. So I just highly recommend that you look into that. If you're having issues with your IEP team, if you continue to say, we're concerned, I'm unhappy, there's a problem, and you take all those steps before writing a complaint, compliance complaints are extremely powerful. They do work. You can be successful in having your concerns heard and resolved, get compensatory services. And I really recommend that because before you consider litigation, because I think compliance complaints are almost even better than going to hearing because it doesn't take as long, it doesn't cost as much money, and you're not in a war-like situation with your district where you have to go back and build all those trust relationships back again. This way, you can say, I took all the steps, I tried to work cooperatively in a partnership with my team, and everyone will know she did come. She tried to resolve this in the appropriate way. It didn't work, and so she filed a compliance complaint, which is your absolute right, parents, to write a complaint. In fact, states say, they want to know when districts continue to be out of compliance and are violating IEPs. And so parents might say, well, what else happens to them? If you're lucky enough to win on the allegation, what else happens? Well, what else happens is violations, compliance complaint violations are state public record, and you can actually see how many violations a district received in one school year. And if a district receives too many violations in one school year, the state can actually withhold funding, special ed funding to that district, which I don't think that's so good because then our kids are getting the special ed kids are getting not fully funded, which isn't too great. But the good thing about it is that The superintendents don't like it. The directors of special ed don't like it. The SELPA directors don't like it. It holds them accountable to holding their teams accountable, their school sites accountable, their principals accountable, so that they don't do these kinds of things. So, you know, in that way, it's a big plus. So I just recommend look into a compliance complaint if you're having issues with your IEP team. It's very powerful, it's very effective, and you can you know, make it right, and then you will really be seen as an equal IEP team participant. They will really respect you if you are successful in writing a compliance complaint. And having them, you know, found in violation, because they'll know, hey, this mom is a mom that we better not mess around with, and they're going to supervise and make sure that your child's IEP is implemented with fidelity. So that's my compliance complaint Facebook Live tonight. And I'm going to try to do Facebook Lives every night this week, because we only have 2 weeks left of school before school's out, and the 2018-2019 year is over, and we have a new year to look up to. So I hope everyone's doing great if you're having IEP meetings, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.